have in front of me here a 32 channel high definition 960H DVR. Basically, the 960H technology means that we can now have high definition analog pictures. I really think this is the way to go for a lot of people, simply because it means that we can use existing cabling or indeed existing cameras in conjunction with new high definition cameras on this single DVR. So let's look at some of the basic specifications on it to make it so impressive. The first thing to note on it, it can obviously take in 32 cameras, that it has a storage capacity of 8 by 4 terabytes in terms of what it can hold internally. So a total of 32 terabytes, which is extremely large. It has great features on it, such as it has a HDMI and VGA output, but also that has alarm sensors. It has PTZ control, so a lot of great features there that you want on a very sophisticated system. Simply because the size of the camera thing on it, it's aimed really at the commercial market, certain residential uses, but only for very, very large areas. So let's just come along here. We're going to look at all the component parts that make up this kit, and we'll also then come along and give a demonstration of the cameras working with it and some of the menu features, etc. So the first thing to note here is it comes in this outer box, so it just gives an overview of the unit itself, and just on the side here a demonstration of the various products that come inside it, the power units, etc. Or the power leads. So then we have the main event, which is the DVR. I'm going to cover this in more detail, but basically we have a touch panel on the front, and then we have all the camera inputs and VGA outputs, etc., all on the back. So if we come along then and we look at the accessories here, we have a mouse that comes with it. We have the following, which are brackets that will be mounted on the side, line up like this, and basically what this does, mounted on both sides, it makes it rack mountable, okay? And obviously again, that indicates the industrial use of it, because, you know, normally racking systems are in commercial premises. We have the power lead here, so basically the power unit is built into the box. On the smaller units, this is part of a wider range of DVRs we have, the 4, the 8, the 16 and the 32-way, all have virtually identical facilities and interface, but the other ones would have the power unit external. This has it built in. We have the remote control here with a set of AAA batteries. We have a user manual here. Once again, it's common across the various size DVRs made by IQ CCTV. And we have this 15-pin connection here, and this allows us to add on additional audio inputs. You can have up to 16 audio inputs from cameras. We have a mini CD here, which we'd use in conjunction with maybe on our PC, just a load-on software that we could use with this particular DVR. And finally here we have a whole series of bags of screws, and basically that's for mounting the hard drives internally to this. So normally when people are putting hard drives in it, they'll go with we'll say the 4 terabytes, simply because it's you know, it'll be the largest that it'll support. So it's all the way up to 32 terabytes in terms of storage capacity. So what I'm going to do now at this point is I'm just going to rotate this unit around. I'm just going to talk about the inputs and outputs on it, and then we'll actually connect up a few cables, bring up the menu, and we'll just have a little bit of further discussion on it. So what we have here on top is we have a row of 16 video inputs. We have a row of 16 video inputs on the next row, okay? We have on the bottom here, so that's the video inputs. In terms of the audio inputs, we have 4 inputs here, but we also have the ability to use this connection here, this 15-pin connection. We can just connect this in like this. And when we see that there, we have just these various audio inputs, and they're all numbered up. Okay, it's impressive there. We have audio outputs here, and indeed we have video outputs here with the main, and we've also the spot one here. We've loop outs at this point as well. Now, in terms of how we could connect it up to a TV or a monitor, we could use the HDMI output here directly to a TV, or the VGA output here. The big advantage of HDMI over VGA is twofold. First of all, TVs are a lot more common than monitors, and the second one is that HDMI can obviously support audio as well as video. We have an Ethernet port here, because we'd obviously network this, it'd be the norm, and we have a USB port here, which we could use for adding external storage devices, for upgrading firmware, or extracting or recording from the device. We have an eSATA drive here, so we can actually come along here, a port, and we can actually add on an external eSATA drive on it. What we have then as well is we have the COM ports here, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and RS 485 for PTZ control, etc. on the bottom here. Then we come along here and we have the alarm inputs here, and they're numbered all the way from 1 to 16. Okay, so it's pretty impressive from that. So it's waiting for a thing, and then it can send out a trigger as well. Let's come along next here. We just have the fan here, particularly important if you have a lot of hard drives in it. And finally, we have the on-off switch and the power input here. Okay. Now, if we were actually removing the cover here to put in the hard drives, all we'd need to do is just remove those 2 screws here, and the top slides off. Okay. So I'm just going to rotate this unit back around, and we're just going to start adding on a few connections. And what we'll do then is I'm just going to clear a little bit of space here, so we can get in here and see clearly what we're doing. What I'll do now is I'm just going to move up this monitor into clear view, and I have a HDMI lead coming out of it, and I'm just going to connect this HDMI lead directly over here. So let's just slide this in. I'll try to angle it so I can both work and hopefully demonstrate a few things. So I'm just going to use the HDMI lead into the HDMI port that I showed a little while ago. So that just connects in here. And the next thing here is we would have a power lead here. And so to have a power input, and we'll just connect that directly on. This will probably beep for a little while now. When we connect it on, we have this camera here, which I'm just going to use for demonstration purposes. And I'm just going to use the actual B&C cable that this comes with, and I'm just going to connect that into port 1, we'll say, on our DVR over here. And it just means that the output from the camera can be run directly over as far as the TV there. So what will happen here is we're just going to come around to the front there. I'm just going to connect up the mouse, and we'll go through here. So what will happen probably initially is it'll just bring up the camera, or maybe a whole grid of 32 cameras, only one of which is connected, and then it'll bring up an initial installation menu, which will exit out of actually in this case. So just wait a few moments here now. I just try to aim back the camera this way. There we are. So the front of this is a touch panel. So it's looking initially for the power, and then it's checking for the hard drive. Sees your hard drive there, which there's not, by the way. What do you call it? So you can see the camera that we have is focused over there, and it's just being there. So that's part of a grid all the way to 32. So it goes down as far as here. So that's just one camera, and we can bring them all up at one time. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to exit out here, and I'm just going to go OK. So we can see here 32 cameras, only one of them showing currently. So what I could do is, if I wanted to bring this first camera up just to display the first menu here, I can actually come along and I'd say, well, I'm going to look at camera 1, and it's full screen there. So the camera I'm using, by the way, very good camera, but it's aimed to be using a large area, probably up to 30 or 50 meters away. So it's a little bit wasted on a wall that's 2 meters away. But anyway, if I come to camera 2, I can just choose it that way, or I can flick back to camera 1 here, right? Alternatively, I could go to camera 9, and then just use the plus button here, up to channel 10, or back down to 9. Now, if I wanted to come along and bring up a menu display, a grid display, what I'll do here is, I'll just hit the grid. It's marked 4 here. So I see it. So if I hit it a second time, what it'll do is it'll actually go up in increments of 4, all the way up to 32. And when it gets to 32, it'll start going through it in blocks of 9. So it was 2 by 2, now it's 3 by 2, or 3 by 3. So it'll go all the way to the end, and then it'll go into blocks of 4. So it does 1 to 16, and then 17, 32. Now it'll be 5 by 5. So the first 25 cameras, and somewhat strangely the last 25. So there's obviously a lot of overlap there. And finally then, we're into all 32 cameras at the one time. Now we can come along here and we can do, if we had a hard drive and we're looking at recordings here, we could come along and we could be playing, or rewinding, pausing, we could be recording. We could hit here the menu button to bring the menu up on the screen. So you can see the menu just displayed here. I'll just point it out quickly. And I'll just hit this again, and it brings the menu off the screen. Now if we had PTZ cameras, the pan tilt zoom cameras, we could actually do the control of them directly from here. Now I find this a little bit cumbersome to do it. It's definitely a lot easier to do with a joystick or a mouse, but you can actually control and hit PTZ. But generally having a touch panel display in it, definitely very advantageous, simply because it means you don't have to be looking for the mouse, things like that. You can just go straight in and pull up to the picture camera you're interested in with no messing around. So what I might do at this point in time here is I might just come along here. We're just choosing this to have this as the background. I'm just going to use the mouse here. I'm just going to say you could go for a 4, 9 or multi-view thing here. You can pull up the PTZ menu. You can go for the start, cruise, the zoom, the play, record, all this thing, the starting, the sequencing. So if you're recording a sequence that you particularly for the PTZ or for the sequence that you're moving through pictures and that, and then there's the audio mute on it as well. Okay, and then you can just bring up the main menu here. Okay, so it's pretty user friendly in terms of the interface. Okay, so just to recap, we'll say in terms of this, this is the sort of 960H development has been huge, I think, because it just means that people, much easier and faster now for people to upgrade to a high definition resolution. So people with their existing skill set in the DVR and working with CCTV, suddenly they can get much higher resolution using basically the same methodology. The fact that this is backward compatible with much lower resolution cameras is great, because you can swap this out for a previous camera and then add in the various different features on it. The next thing I'll say in relation to this is that the storage capacity is absolutely enormous. In terms of if you're deciding to work with a particular range of DVRs, the fact that it's the same manual, the same menu structure all the way from the 4, the 8, the 16, the 32 way makes it absolutely tremendous. So I think this particular DVR, it's really, really good. And in terms of picture resolution and all the rest of it, it's just a huge step forward to what we were achieving previously. So it sits really well in terms of our range of new higher spec cameras. And the strange thing about this is, in general, I would say these new higher specs are actually coming in at a lower price than the previous one, simply because technology moves on and becomes just, the higher volumes are just driving down prices constantly. So that's it anyway, an overview of the 32 channel high definition DVR.